Welcome to Season 2 of the Can You Dig It podcast.
Can you believe it? Season 2, and I'm excited about this because we're going to explore some different topics, go a little bit deeper into some of our women's history, talk even about some of those soiled doves. You'll find out more about that later. And then find out about some of our legal eagles, all at Bellefontaine Cemetery. And we're not going to do it by ourselves.
No, we're not. We are blessed to have incredible guests join us. I just cannot thank our guests enough for the time that they spend and their incredible knowledge that they lend to us.
And the best part of it is I can really dig it.
Oh, I can dig it. Let's get into it.
Today, we're going to just bounce all over the place. We're going to talk about what was the number one wedding gift for many decades.
How about talking parts of Michael Jackson's Thriller?
Yeah, scary candy.
Yeah, I love scary candy. I like all kinds of candy. How about
poetry and prose?
What about a person that is in the middle of one of the most iconic album covers ever?
And a naked lunch.
Is there a better lunch? I don't think so.
We're talking about pop culture. I can dig it.
This is the Can You Dig It podcast. We crawl into the crypts, gardens, and forgotten cemeteries. Join Dan Fuller, your resident cemetery chronicler, and Joe Shields, the plot-loving development exec, as we unearth the dark secrets of St. Louis and Bellefontaine Cemetery and beyond. From garden geeks to history buffs with a taste for the macabre, as well as fans of iconography, this is your podcast. We love diving deep into the shadows of history. Let's dig in.
It is my pleasure to introduce Dan Fuller. Dan Fuller is Bellefontaine Cemetery and Arboretum's cemetery chronicler, and I have known Dan for maybe 4 years now, and every week in, week out, it's an amazing journey to see what Dan digs up.
As cemetery chronicler, I get the chance to do that. It's been a little bit longer than 4 years. But it just goes by fast because it's so much fun.
It does.
I'm here with Joe Shields, who began at Bellefontaine as a volunteer and has moved into our development run. And it is my pleasure to work with him and definitely give him some hard tasks to maybe raise some funds for people who are at Bellefontaine and are not marked. Eliza Haycraft comes to the top of mind when it comes to that. But before we get to something that far back, let's talk about the naked lunch.
Huh? This is a Can You Dig It podcast. Deeper dig.
Can you dig it?
So here's a quick summary of the 1959 novel Naked Lunch by American author William S. Burroughs. Naked Lunch is a wild ride through the drug-addled experiences of William Lee, a junkie on the run. The book is a series of vignettes, often non-linear and surreal, depicting a bizarre underworld of addiction, crime, and social decay. It's a challenging and disturbing, but also darkly humorous, exploration of Burroughs' own experiences and a critique of societal control.
See, a writer can profit from things that may be just unpleasant or boring to someone else because he uses those subsequently as material for writing. And I would say that the experience I had that's described in Junkie later led to my subsequent books like Naked Lunch. So I don't regret it.
The Naked Lunch. I have not read the book. Full disclosure, I have not read the book yet. But I do know that William Burroughs, the author, is with us as a permanent resident at Bellefontaine, and he is the third most visited grave, correct?
He's the second most visited grave, but the person who receives the most gifts.
He does. And for our listeners who don't necessarily know what a gift is, this is mostly for the people in the arts or former military. And so for the people in the arts, like Mr. Burroughs, who is an author, he is going to have people pay homage to him at his grave by leaving pens, pencils, buttons, eyeglasses.
Oh, we get a little risque every now and then.
A little drug paraphernalia here and there, and coins.
The coins are an interesting twist because that really does start with the military cemetery, where the monetary amount is directly proportionate to how well you knew the person. And so the more money that's left behind, the more time you spent with the individual, or the more relationship there was. In the private sector, like with Mr. Burroughs, it's really about the people who have made a pilgrimage and they've seen other people have left things behind. And they want to acknowledge that by leaving something behind. And what do we all have in our pockets but some change? Now, I'm going to throw one more at you because I just love this game. National Candy Company, and it's scary.
National Candy Company. So, jelly beans. Who doesn't like jelly beans? I don't know anybody who does. I don't know if I would trust somebody who didn't like jelly beans. And National Candy Company is one of the storied successes of St. Louis. At one point, it was the largest candy producer in the United States with 22 factories.
That could be scary.
That can be scary. Dan, at their highest point of production, they were making 4 million jelly beans a day.
And you know where they made those jelly beans?
It's in the city, isn't it? Wasn't it on Olathe?
So if you take Chippewa and Gravois, you would find the National Candy Company, which is currently a U-Haul. And who owned the National Candy Company?
Who owns it, Dan?
That would be the Price family.
Which Price? Because that's a St. Louis name.
Specifically, Vincent Leonard Price.
Senior.
SR.
Because Vincent Leonard Price Jr. is the globally known phenomenon.
Thriller.
I was so jealous. I've never had Vincent Price Day in St. Louis.
Never?
No, they'd probably hang me from the arch.
Now, when they hear that, I'll bet you 8 to 5, before the week is out, you'll get a letter saying we want to hold a Vincent Price Day in St. Louis.
Vincent Price's first movie was in 1938 as a leading actor, 1 year before The Wizard of Oz.
But before that, he was a local kid going to Country Day School.
Which is still around, MICDS now.
Right. And he went to school with a couple of brothers here in town.
Our listeners might know the name Lemp.
Yeah, Lemp, one of the largest beer producers in town, and Edwin and Charles Lemp were good mates with our friend Vincent Price. All three of them actually had a passion for collecting art. And one of my very favorite things to explain is that Vincent Price was always a little bit jealous of the Lemp boys because they could afford more and better art than he could.
Well, those are the breaks.
That's the breaks. You got to have somebody in the beer business helping you supply money. But we can kind of do this all day long. This is very joyful, almost like the joy of cooking.
But hey, before we move on, you know, Vincent Price was a gourmet cook himself who penned a cookbook.
Along with his daughter,
Victoria, who has been out to the cemetery just in the last 2 years. She visited just last
year, actually. So we hope to see more of her in the future, as maybe she'll do some additional tours that include her very, very well-known father.
So you mentioned a cookbook.
The joy of cooking, which we're at over 20 million copies sold in the United States now. Worldwide, 20 million copies worldwide. The best-selling cookbook of all time. And it was penned by a person who wasn't necessarily known as a good cook. This is true. It's a great story.
Bonjour. Bonjour. My friends, this is Irma Rombauer. Mrs. Joy?
The first edition of The Joy of Cooking took me a year to write.
Only a year? Including testing the recipes?
Oh, well, I didn't really test all the recipes. There were so many of them. And then I found a publisher, a small printer in St. Louis.
How much money did he pay you?
I paid him $3,000.
$3,000?
A small fortune. But I had a little life insurance money because my husband...
No. He killed himself?
Yes. And I thought, well, what else am I going to do with the insurance money? And then the book began to sell, and Bob's Merrill picked it up, so now I had a real publisher.
Oh. And they gave you some money?
Absolutely not. They swindled me. They stole my copyright. And now there's a new edition, and guess what?
What?
The index is a complete calamity. If you're looking for city chicken, you're not going to find it under C.
Really?
It's under Drumsticks Mock.
No.
You know, Irma Rombauer was not a prolific chef. She did not go to culinary school from a young age. You know, this is a story of, which is one of my favorite types of story for cemetery residents, is when you create something out of nothing.
Right. And it was a necessity for her. She lost her husband relatively early in their marriage. He did leave her with a slight insurance policy, but she knew it wasn't going to be enough. So she would put pen to paper and create the Joy of Cooking cookbook, which has a lot of firsts in itself, and I know you like going into the first. It's really the first one that had a list of ingredients and had more of a step-by-step. Prior to the Joy of Cooking, cookbooks were more by chefs for chefs, and so it was in paragraph form and very hard to follow, and she simplified it and made it palatable for everybody.
This was the cookbook for the average American person.
And for a long time, it was, I hate to say this, the #1 wedding gift.
Was it really?
Yeah.
You know, Irma's impact on pop culture was to help build confidence. And like you had just said, allowed the average person to learn by doing.
Right. And she had to learn by doing repeatedly, in the fact that her first contracts were a little bit not to her favor. And so additional editions would take place, and she knew what had gone wrong initially, and so more and more of those royalties would head her way, and her family are still basically reaping those benefits.
Taking a look at the cemetery landscape, so far for this episode we've talked about Vincent Price, William S. Burroughs, and now we're talking about Irma Rombauer. Just those three people, just those three individuals. Look at the impact that they left on pop culture.
Yep, moving forward and still doing, and they have side aspects as well. One of my favorites, and again, just running back to the whole horticulture aspect, is the fact that there is a cultivar boxwood called Joy, and it was done in honor of our friend Irma.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
It's amazing. So out of the three people that we're highlighting today...
Oh, I have a fourth.
Oh, you have a fourth?
I have a fourth.
Do tell.
But maybe we can do that after the break.
I can dig that.
I can too.
Got a dream, a passion, a product, a service, a brand you want the world to know about?
In a world of noise, you need a way to cut through. And today, the most powerful voices aren't the loudest. They're the most specific.
Niche podcasts are exploding, building loyal, engaged communities around every topic imaginable.
Listeners aren't just tuning in.
They're connecting,
trusting,
and buying.
You don't have to be a tech wizard or a radio pro to make it happen. We get it.
Your expertise is your passion, not production. That's where we come in. At Trevian Entertainment Group, we handle the heavy lifting. From recording and editing to getting your show on all the major platforms, we provide a turnkey solution. We're the award-winning producers behind some of the world's most successful niche podcasts.
We'll help you craft a show that sounds polished, professional, and powerful. This isn't just about starting a podcast.
It's about building an authority, creating a community, and turning your dream into a thriving business.
Don't let your voice stay silent. Go to TrevianStudios.com, TREVIAN.com, and start your podcasting journey today.
Welcome back to the Can You Dig It podcast. I am Joe Shields, Director of Development, Bellefontaine Cemetery and Arboretum, and it is always my pleasure to sit next to Dan Fuller, Bellefontaine Cemetery and Arboretum Cemetery Chronicler.
I always feel like I have to explain that title just a little bit, but it allows me to focus on the history and the archive of Bellefontaine Cemetery. And today we've been talking about some individuals that carry forward with their impact, even though they have passed into the cemetery. And one of them that we were talking about that I feel like we need to double back to is our friend William Burroughs, author of The Naked Lunch. Interesting point here, the last book that came up on obscenity trials in the United States in the Boston court district. So, he's having an impact in the courts whether he knows it or not.
Look at his career. Look at what he achieved, just the works that he published, and just what he had to influence. There's 58 people on the album cover for Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club, and he's smack dab in the middle of it.
point of importance.
It is. It is. It really goes to show how well regarded he was by the band, especially Paul McCartney, who he did have a special relationship with. In other parts of William's career, how cool is it that David Bowie, working on behalf of Rolling Stone magazine, interviews you?
Right.
I mean, mic drop right there, we're going home.
And still to this day, a lot of bands will come to town, and while they're in St. Louis, they'll stop by the Burroughs gravesite and pay homage to, as they called him, Uncle Billy.
It took every bit of 2.5 years for me to finally not stop at Burroughs' grave when I pass by and I see somebody there, because it's just too often now. There's not enough time in the day to keep engaging people.
Right.
Because I've for the first 2.5 years that I did this, I wanted to learn. I wanted to hear what they say. I wanted to know where they're from. And an amazing amount of people that I've encountered are from overseas.
Right.
You've heard an Australian accent, a Swedish accent, a British accent. As they're coming through the United States, they want to stop and pay homage to the great Burroughs and leave a gift.
Yep. And again, that's that little moniker that we have as far as the gifts that we get. And every now and then, it's up to me to clean those off, because, again, some people push the envelope just a little bit. But if you want to hear more about that, you have to come take a tour. Now, I will have to say that I do want to point out that, again, impacting our current today, it wasn't that many years ago we had a contemporary artist come and spend 3 days at Bellefontaine at the grave of William Burroughs, retyping on a similar typewriter that Mr. Burroughs would have used, the Naked Lunch.
Well, tell us about it.
And his artwork was from the standpoint of creating this single sheet of paper that was basically mauled from the repeated typing, and he was doing that across the country with selected pieces of literature that had such an impact here in St. Louis. And it was a wonderful 3 days, because if you went to our Contemporary Art Museum here, there was a GoPro around his neck while he's typing, and so you could hear that going on at the Contemporary. And if you were really paying attention, you might have heard my voice in the background giving a tour.
That's awesome.
So I've got a bonus round for the connection. What do you know about Jesse and Matahata?
That's not ringing a bell.
Uh-oh, I'm doing a stump on this one.
I am completely stonewalled right now.
Now, the irony is the fact that when I threw this name out before, somebody thought of the Whitman Sampler, but it's actually Walt Whitman, the poet of St. Louis, that has a dotted line connection to Bellefontaine Cemetery. His brother Thomas and his 2 nieces are buried with us at Bellefontaine Cemetery. And he definitely had a soft spot for his 2 nieces. And one of his prose is a poem called Manahata.
I have not read that.
You're going to have to put that on the list along with the Naked Lunch.
It's on the bucket list. So have remarked in the past that the cemetery is a collision of coincidence. And some of these people that we're talking about today are within a stone's throw of each other, within probably 30 or 40 feet where their family lots are. Burroughs, not so much. William Burroughs is in a little, you could say, almost the center of the cemetery.
He's got a nice lake view.
He does. And it's at a wide intersection, so it allows people to park. And again, I just wanted to remind our listeners what impact that these people had on pop culture and contemporary history. It's no small feat that the Beatles, David Bowie, Lou Reed, Steely Dan, Duran Duran, Kurt Cobain, and Sonic Youth, and many other musicians tie back to Burroughs as a source of inspiration.
Right.
And it's no small feat that you're one of, I think, 4 people, with Jack Kerouac, Allen Ginsberg, and Neil Cassidy, that started the Beat Generation. And look what he was a part of, influencing literature and the arts, challenging censorship, promoting freedom of speech, influencing perceptions of sexuality and gender roles, helping to open up and explore Eastern philosophies.
And if you want to lighten it up a little bit, you can watch the Daniel Radcliffe movie from 2014 called Kill Your Darlings.
Bringing it contemporary.
So brings that back into a whole, again, new generation. But that's kind of what pop culture does, and that's what we're talking about today.
Absolutely. I can dig it.
We talked about 4, but really it's a never-ending number. And a fifth person is kind of hanging out and is basically a welcome mat to a whole group of ladies who happens to be buried with us, and that's Sarah Teasdale, the poet, the first person to receive what will become the Pulitzer Prize of Poetry. And more importantly, at least from my perspective, as somebody focused on the history, she was a part of the Potter's Wheel. And I think that's a group of ladies that have been kind of forgotten about, and their work can be found throughout the city of St. Louis in many different ways. And as you well know, we're bringing some of that back to life.
Yeah, I'm going to shamelessly plug Voices at Bellefontaine, which is our event for the fall of the year that highlights residents of Bellefontaine. And sometimes you're not necessarily a resident, but you have a dotted line.
A connection.
And this event happens in the fall of the year, and it's 2 days of outdoor theater. And this year we are highlighting 2 of the Potters.
Right. So that'll be Lily Ernst and then also Wilhelmina Parrish. And they are just a small part of the Potters. And this is a collection of women who are doing things that women weren't supposed to be doing at that particular point in time. And I know that they are being breathed new life into our contemporary. And I think you're going to hear more about them. So this is my prediction. So a pop culture wannabe, if you want.
Okay.
Okay?
I can dig that.
Can you dig it? But Sarah Teasdale is the one who's probably most known, and again, for her work. And a lot of people are kind of surprised that she is with us in Bellefontaine Cemetery, but she has steep roots in Bellefontaine. Her grandfather actually was a fatality in the November 1st, 1855 Gasconade train accident. And so, though buried in the same cemetery, she, of course, would go on to do things in her own right that made her very notable, and her work is actually being transcribed into other languages on a constant basis. And every now and then, as we were talking about our friend William Burroughs receiving gifts, I'll find a new book at Sarah Teasdale's grave that has been now translated to a new language.
So, Dan, I agree that the Potters are a story that need to be told, and now is the time. Besides the 2 ladies that we're talking about this year, who are the other Potters?
Well, too many to name in our time today, but the one that I really want to point out is Inez Dutroux, because she's got a very interesting story that leads to an over 100-year journey to finally be buried at Bellefontaine Cemetery. And that 100-year journey started after she died.
Do tell, because just because you're dead does not mean you quit traveling.
No, not at all. I tell that in quite a few of our tours. Inez Dutroux passed and was cremated at Hillcrest Abbey here in St. Louis. And she was kind of forgotten about for a period of time, but then through the efforts of, as I've kind of alluded to, revisiting the Potters and all they did, one of our wonderful volunteers put together the fact that she was missing. And so a search began, and through our friends at Hillcrest Abbey, we were able to secure those cremated remains, because there is a Dutroux family lot. Now, interestingly enough, at the time that all of this is going on, a family member from East Coast identified themselves. And that was how we basically had the permission moving forward to bring Inez home. And so she made the journey from Hillcrest Abbey, and just last year she was laid to rest on the family lot right next to her parents. And what's really kind of fun and kind of sews it back up to this whole pop culture aspect is we discovered through, again, volunteer efforts, a poem that she had written that was then read at the time of her burial that took place 100 years after her death.
I love that story. And to be on the periphery of that, it was moving just to see how all of that unfolded. And through the efforts of, yourself, Lacey Reinhardt, our volunteer event coordinator, and the leadership at Hillcrest Abbey to bring Inez home.
Yep.
It was an incredible, it was time.
And again, I think, kind of circling back to what we've been talking about today, it's going to put new eyes on some of this work. And whether it be somebody that samples something that was inspired by William Burroughs through one of the, we'll call them more contemporary rock artists, or if it's Vincent Price being included on the Thriller song, or Irma Rombauer's wonderful recipes and her personal anecdotes about how she did her cooking. They're still with us today and moving forward, and will maybe never leave us.
Never. The tentacles of history that come out of just these people that we're talking about are impressive. For instance, I had mentioned Irma Rombauer's maiden name earlier, Starkloff. The Starkloff family is generations of physicians that have had just an amazing impact on St. Louis. Max Starkloff was the health official who helped get St. Louis through the pandemic
of 1918.
Of 1917, 1918.
And coming forward to a more current generation, the Max Starkloff that many St. Louisans might know is the creator of Paraquat.
Right, Max J. Starkloff, who we've highlighted at Voices of Bellefontaine two seasons ago. And Colleen Starkloff was there, which is Max's wife, and the family was, it was an amazing experience. And not too far, I would say maybe 3 or 4 lots over from the Starkloffs, you're going to find Edna Gellhorn, suffragist.
Very much so. And that, I think, might actually be another podcast in the future as we delve into the 3 generations of suffragists that are laid to rest at Bellefontaine Cemetery. Names like Edna Gellhorn, Virginia Minor, Anna Clapp, and my favorite. You know who my favorite is?
I am going to guess Rebecca Hazard.
Rebecca Hazard. And if our technicians can figure it out, we'll play her rallying song for the suffragist cause.
Bring the good old bugle boys, we'll sing another song. Sing it with a spirit that shall start the cause along. Sing it as we ought to sing it, cheerily and strong. Give the ballad to the mothers. Hurrah, hurrah, we bring the jubilee. Hurrah, hurrah, the homes they shall be free. So we'll sing the chorus from the mountains.
Well, today we started with 3. I added 1, you added 1, and there's more out there.
There is. St. Louis's ties to pop culture, no end.
No limits.
Miles Davis, Josephine Baker, Chuck Berry are just 3 that are not at Bellefontaine, but just show that the pop culture roots in St. Louis are deep.
Yeah, and what a best place to do it from the center of the country. That way you can propagate to both coasts.
Absolutely.
Well, I can dig it.
I can dig that all day long.
Thanks for listening to the podcast. Also, please share this episode with your family and friends if you got value from the episode as well as the podcast. You can do it right from the platform you are listening on. Plus, take a screenshot and tag us and tag yourself. We are at Podcast Can You Dig It on Instagram. The Can You Dig It podcast is produced by Peace Off Productions and the Trevian Entertainment Group.